Hey there, welcome back, everybody. I appreciate you being here. I do offer valuable resources, and I appreciate that you are here to gain them. And today's topic is something that is really, really prevalent in our society and is causing a lot of neurological health issues for many, many people. And it is a contributor in the symptoms of autism. And what I'm going to do with this episode is cite from a couple of studies because I have to be careful with some of the things that I say, or YouTube and Google will remove my content. So things like the V word, which I will not say completely, will be left out of this episode. But I want you to know that there are contributing factors involved in our society, in our environment, that have to do with today's topic and how it affects our children and us as anybody on the planet, really. It is prevalent and it is the health risks of aluminum exposure, what you need to know. And this is podcast episode number 195, and I will link to show notes, which will link to the studies that I will be going through today. And the show notes will be at naturallyrecoveringautism.com/195. This is episode 195, and I wanted to make sure that you knew that I would link to these studies that I will be talking about in the show notes there for you, in case you want to go back and, of course, look even deeper into the study, because there are a couple of studies I'm going to be talking about their specifics and the things that they found. But there is a lot more in these studies as well. And it's just too much to go through in an entire episode because they're extensive, which is very, very good for us to know. Peer-reviewed studies done by very, high-end, respected people, knowledgeable, taken a lot of time, basically gone through used multiple subjects in their studies, et cetera. So first of all, I want to talk about how do we get aluminum exposure. Aluminum is really prevalent in our air, in our soil, the food we eat, the water we drink. There are a lot of other, as I mentioned, other environmental aspects that will affect us as well, and even in cookware and there's aluminum in deodorants and lotions and things like that. So you really need to read your labels. I strongly suggest purchasing all of those health and beauty aids at a quality health food store. Always read your labels. Does it say aluminum in any way? Or does it say other things that you want to know about, like phthalates, PTH, is how phthalates are spelled or started to spell. So things like that you just want to know about. And I will link to another episode that I did in the past that had to do with environmental toxins, other ones, so that you'll know some of those things to look for on those labels. But today we're going to be talking about, again, aluminum exposure. I've done episodes on heavy metal toxicity and how it is implicated in autism. And again, hopefully that isn't enough to get this removed off Google when I say something like that. But there are studies that show it over and over. And I will link to some of the episodes that I've done with studies that talk about that as well. So it's very important, mercury, lead, aluminum, cadmium, kind of the big four there for heavy metal toxicity. But aluminum is implicated in so many things, and it is so dangerous to our bodies. So basically, the aluminum-based adjuvants are used in immunotherapy of allergic conditions, and almost 75% of all adjuvant-based treatments include aluminum salts. So that's something to know about too. Aluminum is used as a preservative. You might even find it in your or your child's medications. So really be careful with that. Sometimes we don't realize that we're giving ourselves or our child something that actually has harmful and dangerous risks involved in it. And we're supposed to be giving them something that we think is healthy, right? Very, very important. So, aluminum poisoning with emphasis on its mechanism and treatment of intoxication. This is the PubMed.com study that I will be linking to again in the show notes for you, from the multiple 6 authors that are involved in this extensive study. Aluminum, a corrosion-resistant metal, has lightweight density versus heavier metals, as we talked about, aluminum, mercury, and cadmium. High electrical and thermal conductivity and high ductility is easily deformable. For this reason, it is used in aerospace industries, transportation industries, packaging and food industries, building and construction, electrical industries, a wide range of home, household appliances, machinery and equipment, and monetary currency like aluminum coins. What are the health risks of aluminum exposure? Approximately 60% of the body's aluminum is stored in the bones, 25% in the lungs, 10% in the muscles, 3% in the liver, and 1% in the brain. Inside the cells, aluminum is stored in the lysosomes of brain neurons, liver, spleen, mycocytes of the heart, smooth muscle cells, epithelial cells of the kidneys, and mitochondria. Now, we've talked about mitochondria as well in the past. It's the energy center of the cells. So remember, all of these cells that go to these mechanisms in the body are being disrupted. We're going to go on here. Aluminum also causes permeability of the mitochondrial membrane, again, for the energy cell, the cell's energy source. In general, something called ROS and oxidative stress, which is regulation of reactive oxygen species generation in cell signaling, another study I will link to, but I don't want to lose you there with these technical pieces, but I did want to cover what I was saying. So in general, ROS and oxidative stress disturb cellular signaling and transmission and result in cytotoxicity. The consequence of this process is neural damage. Now, neurons are brain, okay? Neural damage, central nervous system, neurodegeneration, destruction of them, and actual death of neuron cells. I think you're getting the point, right? Experimental studies suggest the neurotoxic effects of aluminum compounds due to the generation of ROS and free radicals. Thyroid conditions are seen to develop as aluminum prevents the release and synthesis of parathyroid hormones, as well as respiratory conditions, disrupts protein synthesis and gene expression, including DNA. Brain gene transcription in the presence of aluminum leads to a deficiency of genetic information, immunological signals, and destruction of DNA in the mammalian brain. Okay, so basically the brains of mammals, right? We've seen this. Aluminum salts may bind to DNA and RNA and prevent their formation. We're talking about genetic issues here, okay? More than 95% of aluminum is excreted through the kidneys. You have a child with some kidney problems, you have kidney problems, these are something to look at as indications of possibilities for the problems, right? The excretion process may last between a few hours, a few days, and even a few years. Okay, it's also very important to know that heavy metals are very, very cumulative in the body. They accumulate and build up to decades. Okay, so they stay in the body and they continue and they cause more and more harm, causing damage to multiple systems of the body, as you're hearing here as well. And I will link to the other studies in podcasts that I've done on heavy metal toxicity for you in the show notes as well. But I just wanted you to get the gist of all of this. The excretion process, again, lasting up to multiple years, the accumulation of aluminum in the kidney causes glomerular filtration failure and damages tubular kidney cells, leading to impaired renal function. So basically, it damages the kidneys and causes impaired kidney function, and which can lead to a lot of other problems, right? Aluminum causes destructive changes in liver cells. Now, we know children with autism have congested livers, and many people who are very toxic do, of course. The liver can get backed up with toxins very easily, too. You know, between the air, food, water, or alcohol consumption, high sugar, high carbohydrate, junk food, all of these things, makes the liver just back up with toxins. It's trying to process these things out faster, and your body can't do it as fast as it needs to. And that's why we talked about in the past die-off symptoms with your child. As you're detoxifying your child, the liver's already backed up. So you have to have some toxin binders and some other detox support in place before you move on. Okay, very important. That's why your child can get much worse before they get better if it's done too quickly or there isn't enough binder and detox support in place. So you got to get the liver balanced out a little bit better. So it enhances pro-inflammatory cytokines such as TNF alpha to 7 times the normal amount. So basically, it's increasing the inflammation of the liver to 7 times because of the detriment of it. The neurological effects. Now, here we talk a little bit more specifically in autism, although the kidneys and the liver and the thyroid are all implicated because it's never just one thing. I'm always talking about it's A to Z. Start with diet, get my free food guide, please. Make sure you're at least eliminating those top 7 foods. I link to that in the show notes as well. But that's just square one. Is it very, very important? And is there more to know about diet? Absolutely. But at least there's a place for you to begin. And then you can move on, and that's what we do. And I'll link in the show notes to how I can help you through all this as well, because I never want to leave you hanging. A lot of people don't know that I have a membership program or other things that I offer, and they'll say, how can I work through this? So I want you to know that I do offer help for you if that's something that you're interested in, and I will link to it in the show notes for you. The neurological effects of aluminum in the human brain. When aluminum loading occurs, aluminum gradually accumulates in human neurons, making them vulnerable. Again, vulnerable, weaker, right? Not as strong, more susceptible to other toxic damage from other things in the environment. Studies have suggested that even small amounts of aluminum in the brain may alter iron homeostasis in the brain, causing neurodegenerative disorders. Aluminum can cause accumulation of amyloid beta plaques in the brain, tau protein and degeneration of neurofibrillary tangles and neurons. Now, we've seen a lot of issues with these types of amyloid plaques in the brain from aluminum. It's very, very much implicated in Alzheimer's. Many, many studies out on that as well. That you can look up if you're wanting to look more on Alzheimer's. But all of these things are implicated. And again, they're in our environment, in our home daily. So and there are ways to detoxify these safely and naturally without the drugs that allow for reabsorption in the system. So neurological manifestations of aluminum poisoning include, here we go, some of the symptoms to look for. And we can all sort of relate: memory loss, tremors, jerking movements. Now we know our kids have, we call them stimming. Stimming movements are like jerking movements. Diminished coordination, weakness in motor movements, lack of curiosity, ataxia, speech disturbances, dyspraxia, dysphagia, and stuttering. Now I'm going to do a future episode on speech and autism and how this is implicated and things that can be done, because speech is such a big issue for children with autism. And parents, you want to connect with your child. I'm asked all the time, my child's not speaking yet, how can I do this? And there are things that we can do for it. So this is to help you understand many of these underlying causes. And we don't want to just try and mask symptoms. It's hard enough for them to try and do any type of speech therapy if their brain is toxic, inflamed, and they can't do what they normally could on their own if we worked with these underlying causes first, right? That's what I help you with, so don't worry about that. So I'm just going to go on here. Speech disturbances clearly outlined in this study. Again, more jerking and convulsive type of behavior. So they're all implicated in symptoms. The causal changes in behavior from aluminum and consciousness levels such as agitation, confusion, again, more jerking, grand mal seizures, coma, and death. Yeah, I know it's pretty harsh, but it can be pretty harsh. So there's another episode that I did in the past with Professor Christopher Exley. He is a PhD biologist, and he's been researching aluminum for, I believe, close to 40 years now. Very, very accomplished, and I'll link to that in the show notes. The interview that I did with him, he has published over 200 peer-reviewed scientific papers and has earned his nickname as Mr. Aluminum. Now, Dr. Exley, he is an English chemist known for his research, again, in the health effects of aluminum exposure. And I will link to the episode that I interviewed him directly and where I will go, where I cite his studies and more of what I'm going to be talking about now as well. So just remember in the show notes, again, at naturallyrecoveringautism.com/195, you'll find the links to all of this. So one of Dr. Exley's studies involved autism. Multiple studies show elevated levels of aluminum in the brain are linked to autism. Now, this is from Dr. Exley in his study, as well as early onset Alzheimer's. Yet it is said that aluminum is also the greatest untold story of science, he says. Autism has genetic factors, but it is also largely due to environmental toxins. Genes must be affected by something harmful to disrupt them. So your child wasn't just born with a genetic, most will say, genetic mutation or genetic issues that may or may not have been there at birth. Environmental factors, even to mother prior to conception and during pregnancy, can also affect that baby. So remember that. So we're very, very the fetus is used by the mom's body as a conduit to detoxify into when we're pregnant. So we really want to do the best to detoxify ourselves and do a whole cleansing process, get rid of the co-infections, all of the things that we can do to help our bodies be as clean as possible before we even conceive. Many of us don't know that. This is something that I also help parents with, because what I teach parents that you walk your child through is what you want to do for yourself as well. It is the A to Z detoxification, clearing co-infections, and whole cleansing process that will help to allow your body to be strong and work efficiently on its own, so that these symptoms are not the causes are not there to cause these symptoms. But we have to also not only detoxify, but keep our home safe, right? So that is very important. Our home and our environment as safe as we can, and detoxify. Again, autism, again, largely caused by genetic factors, but are triggered by environmental toxins. There are many toxic metals, including, again, mercury, lead, cadmium, and aluminum, which are toxic to the brain, body, and its organs. A study done through the Journal of Trace Elements in Biology called Aluminum in Brain Tissue by authors Matthew, well, I'll link to that actually, and Dr. Exley was one of them. I'll link to these in the show notes. But the study showed the aluminum content of brain tissue in autism was consistently high, with some of the highest values for aluminum in human brain tissue yet recorded, ever recorded. These were found in brain tissue of people with autism. So this is something that can show you that it's not just implicated as a factor, it is a very strong factor. And it does affect the brain, the body, the organs, the kidney, the liver, the heart, the lungs, all of these things, So again, it's very important to understand that, aluminum toxicity has immense health risks. Even at very low levels, it causes physiological and neurological damage and even death of neural cells. No levels are safe. Children with autism are known to have many of these symptoms and should be detoxified safely and effectively. I do everything naturally as well. And assuring the daily exposure is minimal. Eating organic food, very important. Using household products, including cookware, cleaning agents, health and beauty products that are aluminum free is crucial, and a very, very high quality water filter, because aluminum is in our water as well. So making sure that all your pots and pans are, are aluminum free. Those toxic coatings that they put on for many of the non-stick. You need to make sure that it's a green pan, it's non-toxic, that it doesn't have a layer of the nonstick materials that can be very, very toxic. So very important to look into that. Um, Again, for further education and everything in the A to Z process, I will link in the show notes to the ways that I can help you at naturallyrecoveringautism.com/195. And if you know anybody who would be benefit from this information, please share it with a friend. There are a lot of people out there that don't understand the implications of the toxins in our environment and how prevalent aluminum is in even in our home. Most deodorants, if they're not a natural deodorant, you're putting aluminum right onto your lymphatic system, right in our armpits are part of our lymphatic the system, so it's soaking right into it. There are so many triggers out there. So I want to make sure that you're safe. I'll link again in the show notes for this episode to things that can be beneficial for you. Other episodes I've done, these studies, as I mentioned, and in the future I will be doing one on speech, which I know that you're all very, very interested in knowing about. So I'm looking forward to doing that for you, helping you in as many ways as usual and as always that I can, and hope that hopefully this has been beneficial for you. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care and thanks for being here.